had told us about. So at that point, the next time I saw Dr. Wilkinson, I said, Dr. Wilkinson, is Elder Froome a Jesuit?
Wow.
Dr. Wilkinson wouldn't answer it, but I could see from the look on his face that there were big questions because of the way this man had fought him.
Mm-hmm.
And we also had the book Questions on Doctrine.
That's what I want to talk about here.
Questions on Doctrine written, and there were 3 men. Dr. Wilkinson, one day we came to his house and he was pacing up and down and he had a manuscript in his hand. And he said, this is a book they're getting ready to print. He said, this book is pointing a dagger at the Adventist heart.
That presented us more in favor to the evangelical world.
That's right.
That we didn't look as peculiar now on the nature of Christ and other pivotal doctrines of the Adventist Church.
That's right. So Wilkinson was very upset about that, but there was nothing he could do about it. There were 3 authors of that book, and Wilkinson said, look at this. He said, they're not even listing the authors. They don't even want anyone to know who the men were that were behind the writing of this book. One of them was Froome.
And the other 2, June, were Walter E. Reed and Roy Allen Anderson.
All 3 of these men were the most prominent up in the General Conference.
Really?
Yes.
I don't see Leroy Froome's name in here. I have a copy of Questions on Doctrines, and it was published in 1957. But inside the book, it says that it was prepared by a representative group of Seventh-day Adventist leaders, Bible teachers, and editors.
These were the things that were going on in Tacoma Park while we were there at the time. And at a church potluck, we met a lady that was just there for the day. She was an Adventist lady. I don't know if she was visiting relatives or what she was doing. But in the conversation, I found out that she had lived at Tacoma Park for a while. Mm-hmm. And I found out the years and everything. And somehow in the conversation, she told us a story. And she said that she had a Catholic friend, a good Catholic friend. And one day she said to her, I want to introduce you to vegetarian diet. So she took her to the sanitarium hospital where we had a lovely, dining room, and many visitors would come in. And so she took her there, and they were eating their food, and in walked Elder Froome and another General Conference man with him. And this woman about dropped her fork, the Catholic woman, and she said, what are they doing here? And our Adventist lady said, well, what do you mean by that? That's Elder Froome, up in the General Conference. And she named the other man. And the woman said, no, they are not, they're Catholic priests.
What?
And our friend, our Adventist lady says, what do you mean? They're Adventist ministers. This woman said, no. She says, I've been at Mass when they were performing Mass. I've been in Catholic churches where these men were performing Mass.
I've heard that story from another person who said that the man who was walking with Leroy Froome that day, that the woman identified they were Catholic priests, was the other author of Questions on Doctrine, Roy Allen Anderson.
So this lady passed this on to me. I wish now I had gotten her name and her address.
Well, think about this a minute, as you've looked at Kellogg. We've talked about a brilliant mind, a brilliant man who's written
theology students, okay? Then men from the General Conference came to him and said, Ben, you are working too hard. We're going to relieve you of some of your duties. We will send a young man to teach your theology students, and that will take the burden off of you. So, okay, Ben went along with it, And this young man came and he began teaching our theology students. Well, it wasn't too long until some of the students who already had been taught by Wilkinson came to him and said, Dr. Wilkinson, there's something strange here. He doesn't seem to be teaching what we have always taught and what we believe. So it was very insidious, but some of these brighter young men were picking up that there was something wrong here. Well, Dr. Wilkinson did not walk in and confront this theologian. He just simply began watching the mail. Out in the hallway was kind of a pigeonhole. There was a pigeonhole where all of the mail of all the various teachers and everything was put in. So and the pigeonholes are open, they're not closed. So Wilkinson's watching this professor's mail. And one day this manila envelope comes in, and Wilkinson sees the return address coming from Georgetown University, and Wilkinson took that manila envelope into his office. He steamed it open, and he read its contents.
I believe it was the first Jesuit university in the United States.
That's right, it was.
This is where Bill Clinton went to school.
Yes, of course he was intrigued when he saw that address. When he opened it up, he found the instructions in there as to what this man was to teach the theology students for the next few weeks or the next month. So he was evidently getting monthly instructions as to what he was to teach.
He was a plant, a Jesuit plant.
But what has often roused my curiosity, who were the men in the General Conference who saw to this man getting in? And I will get to that a little later.
Okay.
Anyhow, Wilkinson called this man into his office, and he put the mail in front of him. He said, I know who you are, I know why you are here, and I know where you come from. He said within the hour, the young man was